The tripartite alliance is thrown a lifeline in a statement released after yesterday's political council meeting between top leaders of the ANC, the SACP and COSATU. It suggests the alliance partners are ready to resolve their differences through dialogue. They agreed to develop a paper to mobilize, or rather the modalities of a reconfigured alliance, and discuss the same at the next meeting of the Alliance Political Council, now scheduled for November.
It was a successful meeting. COSATU managed to put their issues on the table, and others also put their issues. We had frank, honest engagements, in particular about the importance and the relevance of the alliance, that this alliance is very, very critical for South Africa. This alliance is very, very important to unite South Africa. Hence, we could easily be at one about the need for the unity of the alliance, the unity of the African National Congress. We are also at one about our characterization that at the moment that unity is quite challenged. But because parties were able to put all the issues on the table, there's a clear process put across to deal with those issues.
The Alliance Political Council discussed, among other issues, I will point to at least two in accordance with the final statement that we released. Lack of consultation in decision making, including the prerogative of the president, premiers and mayors in appointing and reshuffling members of the cabinet, provincial council and mayoral committees. The Alliance Political Council concluded and emphasized the importance of appropriate consultation and alliance partners making an input when such decisions are taken. Without that happening, the alliance will disintegrate.
And some key takeaways emerged from the Alliance Political Council. Firstly, the Council will meet in November to discuss the state of the Alliance before the December elective conference. And there's a need to develop a concept for reconfiguration of the Alliance. And this concept would be discussed at the November's Political Council. Thirdly, the Alliance partners will end the boycott of President Zuma and recognize his prerogative. However, alliance partners now seek consultation on this issue. An urgent judicial probe must be established into allegations of state capture. And lastly, the alliance agrees in principle to use billions sitting with the Public Investment Corporation and Government Employees Pension Fund for developmental objectives. Joining us in studio, Botsanga Muilwa, political analyst, and Jackie Shandu, political commentator. And thanks, gentlemen, for your time. Thanks so much for joining us. Are these desperate times for the SACP, especially when their leader has been axed? We know that this was quite a huge embarrassment for them. Whether it was anticipated or not is another case. But are these desperate times, in your view? We'll start with you, Jackie.
Good evening, Cindy. Good evening to your viewers as well. It would appear that it's a wake-up call. It's a reality check on the part of the SACP in terms of the structure of the alliance, who leads the alliance, and who is the ruling party. Because if we look at what has been happening in the past few months, with COSATU going out pronouncing, banning a sitting president from their own functions or events, SACP doing the same, with SACP also making endorsements for the forthcoming elective conference of the ANC. So there's been a lot of sort of confusion around the rules of engagement, the structure of the alliance. For instance, this Alliance Political Council also spoke about, which I found interesting, the prerogatives of the president, the premiers and mayors to appoint or fire ministers or MECs and so on and so forth, which is something that's already given to the president in terms of the constitution. Why would you need to then have a discussion around it? I think more than anything, this calls for a real reassessment of the necessity, even of the alliance itself. Post-apartheid, it was understandable. It made perfect sense to unite all black formations, workers, the communists and so on and so forth. In fact, even Steve Biko of the Black Consciousness Movement, his death mission was trying to unite the ANC with the PAC and BCM to form one black power front against apartheid. So it made sense. But post-94, the ANC's government, its ruling party, what justifies this sort of alliance? And the other question, who needs who now? Does the ANC rely on COSATU and the SSCP in order to get votes? Or does COSATU and the SSCP benefit from their alliance with the ANC in terms of capturing workers and so-called communists? I think these are things to frankly and honestly have a discussion about.
Yeah, could the issue have been that there's no ambiguity necessarily in terms of who should salute which general, but the fact is that there had been careerism and opportunism in the whole alliance and no particular ideological stance, that it becomes about personality. What do I get out of aligning myself with the next successor of the ANC presidency, etc.?
Good evening, Cindy and Jackie, and good evening to the viewers. Actually, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, you cannot expect a normal situation to prevail in an abnormal environment. It has been very abnormal that the communists, or the supposed to be Communist Party of South Africa, and the socialist trade union movement of South Africa, like COSATU, are aligning themselves with the African National Congress post-1994, which has clearly become a capitalist organization. The ANC is pushing neoliberal and capitalist policies. Now, that already was an abnormal situation. You are having supposed to be communist, socialist, and a capitalist organization. The fundamental requirement of any association to happen or marriage to happen is when you've got a common ground. These three organizations, they don't have a common ground at the moment. Historically, yes, they had. They had a common enemy of the apartheid regime. They had a common enemy of unifying the poor black majority masses and the working class. But at the moment, that's not the case. I want to come and say, actually, it is an opportunist relationship that they are sitting with.
Correct.
Opportunism says that the SACP, which has been very loud and making noise in attacking the leader of the African National Congress, and actually not even attacking him, even going to an extent of saying, we don't even recognize this person, we don't want to meet with this person, we don't want to share one room with this person. What makes them, in 2 months' time, it was in September, when they were in August, when they were sitting and saying, we don't want to recognize this person. 2 months down the line, they are saying, but let us talk and realign. I think it's a positive thing. It's a good thing when, kids in the one house have entered the battle and they had differences to sit down and say, let's talk, let us review our decisions. If it's genuine, if it's honest, but I want to say to the Tripartite Alliance, if they are not going to go and revisit their policies, to come with a policy position of what do they want out of the country, the working class are being taken care of. A disappointing statement today, Minister of Finance Malusi Gigaba shut down the students, free quality education that the people have been pushing. What is SSCP and COSATU going to say to that kind of policy position to say, but we have been fighting for the students, which will also benefit the working class, because it is the parents that are paying or suffering enough more than the students themselves. That's one element. But Cindy also, Jackie mentioned the issue of honesty and openness and laying cards on the table and putting it there. I listened to the interviews during the day. I looked at the demands of this political bureau or council. Let them live. If they can't separate government from the alliance, then they will have a problem, because you cannot come and dictate to a sitting head of state some things that will be contrary to the constitution of the country. They will have a problem.
Yeah, and I mean, their level of consultation as demanded seems to be that an ideal result is should be in the favor of SACP, in the sense that they must give consensus after the president has consulted on who to remove or redeploy, etc. That's not going to work.
It's clear that they actually don't understand, or in fact, they do understand. It's a refusal to accept that the ruling party is the African National Congress, which is founded in 1912. The Communist Party of South Africa arrives on the political scene in 1920. It's led by whites. It's a very racist, anti-black so-called Communist Party. They were even rejected by Stalin, by the way, at some point in Russia. But still on Stalin, Joseph Stalin, the leader of the Soviet Union, it was he who advised communists around the world. Because we are always a minority, and we are not able to contest power on our own, identify progressive nationalist parties, align with them, but with the intention of either you move them to the left, to the communist section, or over time you take power even from them. So this is how the SACP comes into this kind of alliance. I'm saying it's been more than 24 years. My colleague is 100% correct. The ANC is a very right-wing, neoliberal, capitalist state that they've been, economy that they've been pursuing, with no sympathy with the poor and the working class. I mean, we find it so strange. Here is a guy, I mean, you can go back even to the days of Julius Malema and the ANC Youth League. When the ANC Youth League first made the call for nationalization of mines, the SACP through Blades Manda rejected it. Hands off. And we thought, but this is exactly what communist ideology dictates, you know? So it just shows you, it's unlike Chris Hani, the former general secretary of the party, who refused to go to cabinet. Today, both COSATU and SACP exploit the alliance to demand we want more representatives of more communists to be mayors, more communists
to be ministers. So the goalposts have been shifted in the sense, what is it that ideologically still brings them together? If you're saying, and of course, that's being economical with the truth, saying the ANC has done nothing for the poor. You know, in terms of policy, we can debate that.
Well, I wouldn't say the ANC has done nothing for the poor, but I'm saying the way they align themselves, as I said, the way they govern the country, it is nowhere near communism or socialism. So we can forget that. But we can also see that there's supposed to be communist and socialist formations in the country are actually more comfortable, and they want to conduct themselves in a manner that is more comfortable to the ruling party. And that's why it only when Jacob Zuma, the president of the country, rattled feathers and started showing the Communist Party that, but I'm in charge, I'm the government, I was deployed by the ANC, I will do what I think as the head of state and what the ANC want or think. You came here with the ticket of the ANC. And we should not forget that the SACP is in government and parliament and cabinet on the ticket of the African National Congress. But what they are trying to do at the moment is to disregard that, to move away from that stance, to say, but we want to come, here are the terms and the conditions, and come November, they're going to table the terms and conditions. I don't know what is COSATU going to say to their members and SACP now, that were booing Zuma and the ANC in their rallies and meetings, that they're going to go back to their members and say, now we are reviving the alliance, now we are one thing, let us work towards unity. But another important element, Cindy, is the ANC outcome of December elective conference is going to be very important. That is going to determine whether this alliance or this marriage is going to happen or not. If the ANC itself, as a political party, doesn't come out united after December, then the tripartite alliance will not happen.
Let's be a bit fair, you know, and say, look, the least we would have expected from COSATU and the SACP being in an alliance with the ANC, alliance government, we would have expected for COSATU to say, our minimum requirement from 1994 moving forward, we want sectorial minimum wages. That would have gone a long way. We sit with tons of workers that are not protected by the Labor Relations Act, farm workers, for example. We would have expected, at the very least, for the Communist Party to say, look to Scandinavia, look to Finland, Norway, and Sweden, impose a wealth tax. If they were serious about this so-called developmental state, all you need to do, impose a wealth tax, take that revenue, pump it into healthcare, pump it into education, without even going into ideological, whether it's socialism, capitalism, I mean, the basic minimum. So it's very strange that Africa tends to be more capitalistic than the West. Capitalism comes from the West, but you go to Germany, it's a mixture. They know everyone must be taken care of in terms of the basics, the necessity. Education, healthcare, shelter, job creation. And then you come to a continent that holds among the most poor people on the planet. And we seem to have this very dogmatic, rigid.
Yeah, but I mean, even if we look at things of restitution, for example, which is supposed to at least galvanize support in terms of what the preamble of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is, that of dealing with the issues of injustice of the past so that we can move or build into a more equal society. There isn't uniformity in that sense, because in the definition of white monopoly capital, or whether you buy into radical economic transformation, there is a disjoint there and contestation of whether it exists or not. So let's look at the power dynamics on who carries more weight, who's likely to tilt the scale and either unite the alliance or completely disintegrate it.
Well, look, Cindy, I think the African National Congress is the leading party with numbers,
sure,
with history, and they should be on the forefront of uniting the alliance. They should be able to lead and give guidance. Historically, we should remember that the Communist Party was given an impression that they are the think tank of the ANC. If you read papers and everywhere, people will tell you how the communists, they brought ideology, they brought the thinking tanks and all, even militarily.
Not
if you
true.
look, I don't think it's true. I personally don't think it's true. The ANC itself, we have members of the ANC historically. We can use Thabo Mbeki as one of them, who never belonged to the Communist Party, but was a member of the African National Congress. Joel Netitens and several others. You don't have to belong to a certain party to be able to reason and know politics. You don't have to belong to a certain formation. But that was the impression that they created, because communists, just like socialists and Africanists, were known to be people who think and talk philosophy, who talk politics and so forth. However, what is failing and what is lacking, whatever the communist stands for, exists for, or COSATU stands for, exists for, it is not driven into the policies of the ruling party and the government. That's what they are supposed to be fighting for. To say, can our communist position or socialist position form part of the policies of the country? That's what they should fight for. Not fight for them to have a certain number of quotas of ministers and influencing mayors to can appoint people and, you know, that deployment committee of the ANC. That's not what they should concern themselves with. They should concern themselves with the policies of this country, should talk to the poor black majority, should talk to social values. Even now, the decision today, actually, it's embarrassing that communists and socialists sit in a meeting with capitalists, the ruling party, and decide to go and fiddle. I'm not against using the revenues that are available in the PIC, that are available in other coffers of government to can fund development. And development is not only infrastructure. Why wouldn't they use those monies to fund free quality education? Because that's part of development.
Correct.
Instead of them saying to the ruling party, let us take money from the rich, the wealthy, as you mentioned, the taxes, to can fund development projects. They want to take savings of government. That doesn't make economic sense.
So in wrapping, what is the objective, though, of this political council if it's not really to either on the part of the SACP, COSATU, to atone for their sins and say, look, we're not going to boo the president, we'll respect his prerogative and moving forward, we'll work united in restoring the alliance?
An important point to make is that among these three, ANC, SACP, and COSATU, the ANC, with all its blunders, with all its weaknesses and failures, is the only one formation among those three that is a creation completely of Africans. Like I pointed earlier, COSATU, found by whites, SACP, in 1985, white liberals who wanted to make sure that workers are organized by whites, not the radical, unionists like Clemens Kadali in the 1920s. So, and it goes without saying, the masses are sentimentally, historically, politically attached to the ANC.
But in my conclusions, what they should be doing at the moment is, they must have learned in the last year or two that when you are having a family infighting, you don't go out and fight outside and please the enemy. We started seeing COSATU and SACP marching with DA and Save South Africa against the African National Congress.
At least you must preserve the dignity and the clan name and keep our affairs internally.
And deal with what they are doing now, it's what they were supposed to have done when they realize that they've got problems. But no, they go outside and they make noise and they scream at the president. They attack the
maybe
ANC.
now they're just here to say they're sorry,
Well, if
delinquents,
they do that.
and prodigal sons and daughters are always welcome home. There's no political dustbin, as it was. So.
If that's what they are aiming at. But, I looked at the pictures, body language. I always look at body language. The president and the deputy president of the ANC and the country laughing and making jokes with the team members and all that. The spirit looked to be proper.
That's what we are told, Busang, but you know, we'll have to wait and find out what the resolutions are. But thanks indeed, as always. We have political analyst Busang Muilua and Jackie Shandu joining us in studio to look at the political council as called by the ANC, COSATU and SACP. Continue on social media and see if this formation will even yield the desired results. We take a break. We'll see you shortly.